Ruthe Ashley in 1988. I went to law school because I was in midlife crisis. I was 37 years old. For those of you who think you're too old to go to law school, you're never too old to go to law school. My kids had said to me, "Mom, you got to watch The Cosby Show because you'll love Claire Huxtable." This is 5 minutes of a half-hour show that changed my life forever. Claire Huxtable was in there for 5 minutes, standing in the bedroom, talking to her husband, Dr. Huxtable. And she was talking about a case she had in court. It was the very first time in my entire life that I had seen a woman of color who was a lawyer. And I thought, if she can do it, I can do it too. That was in March. By August, well, within a week, we were moving to Northern California. And I had called all 3 law schools in Northern California and Sacramento. The only one still accepting was McGeorge School of Law. Within a week, I was up interviewing with Dean Kelso to see if I could be admitted. I took the LSAT test in June. I started in McGeorge School of Law in August, and I graduated from McGeorge on the day I turned 41. It was the best emotionally driven decision I have ever made in my entire life, because I've learned how valuable that education at McGeorge was and has been for my career. And if you think you're too old to go to law school, nah. I've been practicing law, well, I've been a lawyer now for over 34, 35 years. So don't ever think that law school is out of your reach. It's always available, no matter how old you are. And I say, if you can see it, you can be it. Well, I was a nursing professor before I became a lawyer. So I became a litigator as soon as I got out of law school, and litigated in healthcare law and represented nurses and doctors and really worked with healthcare issues for the first 15 years of my law practice. Of course, I figured out I was a woman, and a woman of color, when I learned about the Korematsu case and found how important it was for me as a woman of color to really use that platform. So I started to work in diversity and civil rights cases. And then after I'd been practicing law for 15 years, I was so fortunate to go back to McGeorge School of Law, my alum, and became a career advisor and the director of career advisement, and then became the assistant dean for career services and career development. I did that for 8 years, one of the best jobs that I ever had at McGeorge. I loved McGeorge, I loved the students. And then from there, I went on to really start new nonprofits. Worked as the first chief diversity officer for CalPERS, because at that time its president was a McGeorge alum. So we created the first chief diversity officer position at CalPERS, and then went on to find new nonprofits that focused on diversity in the educational pipeline for the legal profession. And I had my last paying job in 2015. When we created an organization called California Law Pathways with a grant from the Law School Admission Council that focused on the diversity pipeline from high school all the way into law school. Although I haven't been paid for the last 7 years, I still work full-time as a volunteer in building a diversity pipeline. And right now we've just created a new organization called the California Legal Pathways Collaborative that focuses on 23 high school law academies focused on diversity in the legal profession to help make our legal profession in California look like the people we represent. It's like coming home, coming back to be involved with the law school. Having been an alum, graduated in 1988, and having been an employee from 2001 to 2008 in the career services offices, and having been really involved with APALSA for many years after that, having hosted many APALSA students and also being a mentor to so many Pacific McGeorge students. It's like coming back home to be involved during the 100 years. It's amazingly 100 years, and so I'm so happy to be back, and it's so meaningful. I say mentoring, both from above me and below me and sideways and everywhere, those relationships that you have built and the relationships that come from mentoring have been probably the most important aspect of being a lawyer and being at McGeorge. Being able to give back. And I think that is Probably the thing that I've learned most about becoming a lawyer is the relationships that you build. Well, I think one thing that I always tell students that really works for me are three things to have your perfect career. Three things. Number one, experience. Both volunteer experience and paid experience. All the organizations you get involved with, all the people you interact with, all the people that you work with sitting in a boardroom, just like this. The second one is relationships. I call it building relationships because you give as much as you get, which means you are going to contribute to that relationship as much as you get, which means that if it's a mentoring relationship at the very beginning, it becomes a friendship, and then you pass it on, and they pass it on, and it becomes a rock that has rippled, and all these ripples go out from a river or for a lake, and you never know how far your influence goes. And the last thing that you need, experience, relationships, and timing. So, three things that you need, which I've learned through my many years of making the best emotional decision I ever made was to go to law school. Experience, relationships, and timing. Make it really easy for yourself.